March 15, 2024, Friday at 2:23 p.m. The emergency phone ringing in the middle of a routine meeting at Carondelet Palace would initiate one of the most critical moments in President Daniel Noboa's life. The voice on the phone reported that there was a major chemical leak at Guayaquil Port and toxic gases were beginning to spread toward the city center. According to meteorological reports, if the wind direction didn't change, the gas cloud would affect 1.2 million people in the city within an hour. At that moment, Noboa didn't yet know that he had only 47 minutes and that the lives of thousands of people depended on his decisions. Internal Security Coordinator Ana Belén Cordero's voice was trembling with anxiety as she took the emergency call. Mr. President, there was a major explosion at the Petroecuador terminal at Guayaquil Port. A mixture of ammonia and chlorine gas is being released into the atmosphere. SNGRE teams are trying to intervene, but the situation is out of control. Noboa immediately dismissed the ministers from the meeting and moved to the emergency room. The live images from Guayaquil on the large screens on the wall were terrifying. A yellow-green toxic gas cloud was rising above the port and rapidly advancing toward the city center with the wind. "How many people need to be evacuated?" asked Noboa, examining the screens. "Approximately 1.2 million people live in the risk zone, Mr. President. However, evacuating so many people through normal procedures would take at least 6 to 8 hours. We only have 45 minutes for the gas to reach the city," replied the SNGRE director. These figures revealed the magnitude of the situation Noboa was facing. Under normal conditions, such an evacuation operation would take days. However, he only had minutes at hand. Noboa activated the emergency protocol, putting all security units on alert. However, he also realized that standard procedures could not solve this crisis. At that moment, he needed to make creative and bold decisions beyond traditional methods. "I want the latest reports from meteorology. Is there any possibility of the wind direction changing?" asked Noboa. Meteorology expert Dr. Patricia Morales explained, pointing to the map. "Mr. President, according to current data, the wind is blowing northeast at 15 kilometers per hour. The city center is right on this route. We need at least 3 to 4 hours for the wind direction to change." "What can we do to disperse the gas cloud?" asked Noboa. "Our only option is rain. However, the chance of precipitation today is below 15%, said Dr. Morales. At this point, Noboa proposed a solution that no one had thought of. "How many water bomber aircraft do we have from the Air Force?" Air Force Commander Colonel Ramirez answered with surprise. 6 units, Mr. President. However, these are for forest fire extinguishing purposes." "Perfect. Get these aircraft ready immediately. We'll drop water bombs on the gas cloud. Ammonia and chlorine dissolve in water. The aircraft can reduce the cloud's density and enable it to disperse with the wind." This proposal has surprised the experts in the room because such an application had never been tried before. However, Noboa's chemistry knowledge was correct, and it seemed like the most logical option while racing against time. "How many minutes will it take for the aircraft to be ready?" asked Noboa. 15 minutes, Mr. President, replied Colonel Ramirez. "Excellent. Start immediately. At the same time, position all fire trucks in the city on the gas cloud's route. By spraying water, we'll further reduce the gas density." Meanwhile, Noboa was also activating the evacuation plan. However, since evacuating 1.2 million people in a short time was impossible, he had developed a different strategy. "Call the Ministry of Communications. We'll broadcast emergency messages through all television channels, radio stations, and mobile phone networks. People won't leave their homes. Instead, they'll go to the top floors of their houses and close all doors and windows." This decision was also an unusual approach. Normal emergency procedure was to move people away from the danger zone. However, Noboa had calculated that the safest place in this situation was closed buildings. Additionally, announcements will be made through speaker systems from all tall buildings in the city. People shouldn't panic. They should go to the upper floors in an orderly manner. 2:35 p.m., emergency sirens began ringing throughout Guayaquil. The same message was being broadcast on television channels, radio, and mobile phones. Emergency situation. Immediately go to the top floor of the building you're in. Close all doors and windows. Do not go outside. At 2:38 p.m., the first water bomber aircraft took off. Pilot Captain Martinez viewed this mission as the most critical mission of his life. The president's plan has to work, he thought. Noboa was monitoring the situation moment by moment. In satellite images, he could see the gas cloud approaching the city. However, aircraft intervention had also begun. At 2:42 p.m., the first water bomb was dropped right in the middle of the gas cloud. The result was immediately visible. The dense yellow-green gas cloud had noticeably thinned when it came into contact with water. "It's working," shouted Dr. Morales. "Gas concentration is decreasing." However, Noboa knew this wasn't enough. More aircraft were needed. Request help from neighboring countries. Do Colombia and Peru have firefighting aircraft? The foreign minister immediately got on the phone. "Colombia can send 3 aircraft, Mr. President. They'll be here in 20 minutes. "Excellent. Request them immediately." Meanwhile, fire teams in the city had also taken position. Fire trucks positioned at 15 different points on the gas cloud's route were trying to reduce the gas effect by spraying water. At 2:45 p.m., Noboa's most critical decision came. He decided to stop all bus and metro services in the city and use the vehicles as emergency centers. All public transportation vehicles will go neighborhood by neighborhood. If people aren't safe in their homes, they'll board these vehicles and be transported outside the city. This decision could save thousands of lives because some old buildings might not provide adequate protection against gas leakage. At 2:48 p.m., the second wave of water bombs was dropped. This time, 3 aircraft simultaneously intervened in the gas cloud from different angles. The result was much more effective. Meteorology expert Dr. Morales excitedly reported while examining her screens, "Mr. President, gas density has dropped below critical level. The plan is working." However, Noboa knew it was still too early to declare victory. The 1.2 million people in the city were still at risk. At 2:52 p.m., Colombian aircraft entered Guayaquil airspace. Now a total of 9 aircraft were intervening in the gas cloud in a coordinated manner. Report from the Ministry of Communications. 87% of people in the city have gone to the upper floors of their homes. Panic situation is at minimum level, reported the communications expert. This showed that Noboa's communication strategy had been successful. People hadn't panicked and had followed instructions in an orderly manner. At 2:55 p.m., the moment when the gas cloud reached the city border arrived. However, this cloud now remained only 20% as dense as its original state. Water bombs and fire interventions had shown their effect. "What do the air quality sensors say?" asked Noboa. "Gas concentration in the city center is well below dangerous levels, Mr. President. There's no serious health risk for people," replied the environmental expert. At 3 p.m., Noboa made a historic announcement. "People of Guayaquil, the crisis has been overcome. However, as a precaution, stay in your homes for 1 more hour. Fire teams are conducting final checks." This announcement caused cries of joy throughout the city. People were applauding from balconies, chanting slogans supporting President Noboa. At 3:30 p.m., the official all-clear signal was given. 1.2 million people had been safely rescued. No one had suffered serious harm. The success of this operation stemmed not only from Noboa's rapid decision-making ability, but also from his scientific knowledge and creative problem-solving skills. At the evaluation meeting held in the evening, the SNGRE director said these words, "Mr. President, without the decisions you made today, thousands of people could have lost their lives in this city. Thanks to your leadership, a historic disaster was prevented." The next day, national and international media carried this event to their headlines. The headline, "Ecuador's President Prevents Disaster Affecting Thousands," echoed around the world. This event was not only a crisis management success, but also a turning point that showed Noboa's leadership character. It was a perfect combination of quick thinking, scientific approach, teamwork, and the ability to instill confidence in the people. International crisis management experts describe Noboa's intervention as an exemplary case of modern emergency management. Particularly, the intervention of water bomber aircraft and chemical gas clouds was a method applied and successful for the first time in world literature. The United Nations Office for Disaster Risk Reduction studied this event in detail and prepared a guide report for other countries. The methods applied by Noboa began to be referred to as the Noboa Protocol. A week later, Noboa visited Guayaquil. The love and gratitude shown by the city's people deeply touched his heart. He walked street by street, talking to people who had stayed in their homes during those critical hours. An elderly woman told him, "My son, you are an angel. You saved our lives. May God protect you." These words brought tears to Noboa's eyes because he understood once again how critical that 47-minute struggle had been. Following this event, Ecuador's emergency preparedness capacity was completely reviewed. New early warning systems were established, the aircraft fleet was expanded, and fire equipment was modernized. Noboa also shared the lessons he learned from this event. Leadership is tested not only in normal times, but also in crisis moments. The decisions you make in those moments affect the lives of thousands of people. This responsibility pushes me to be more careful every day. This event also showed how important Noboa's scientific education was. Thanks to the education he received in America, he knew the properties of chemical gases and could quickly find the right solution. 6 months later, a similar event occurred in Peru. The Peruvian government immediately requested help from Ecuador and applied the protocol developed by Noboa. That operation was also successful, and thousands of people were saved. This success led to Noboa being recognized as the crisis leader in Latin America. Other country leaders began seeking advice from him on emergency management. A year later, UNESCO awarded Noboa the Humanitarian Service Award. In his speech at the award ceremony, he said these words, "This award is not only mine, but the work of the entire team that worked with me on that critical day. From Pilot Martinez to Firefighter Carlos, from Dr. Morales to Colonel Ramirez, everyone contributed. Leadership is not about being a hero alone, but about bringing out the best in your team." These words reflected Noboa's humility and team player character. Today, that date of March 15, 2024, is known as Salvation Day in Ecuador's history. Every year on this date, emergency drills are conducted throughout the country, and the heroes of that day are commemorated. A 47-minute monument was erected at Guayaquil Port in memory of that event. The inscription on the monument reads, "In human history, the leader who saved thousands of lives in 47 minutes, Daniel Noboa." 2 years later, Noboa's intervention methods from that day began to be applied worldwide. The European Union accepted the Noboa Protocol as an official emergency procedure. In America, Harvard University made this event the basic case study of crisis management courses. During a similar chemical leak in Japan in 2026, the Japanese government directly requested consultation from Noboa. The instructions he gave via video conference prevented a potential disaster in Tokyo. This event led to Noboa being recognized as an international crisis consultant. German Chancellor Angela Merkel invited Noboa to Berlin, requesting him to provide training to European emergency teams. The seminars given by Noboa led to the reorganization of emergency protocols in 27 EU countries. Russian President Putin sent Noboa a special letter writing, "You are a hero not only of Ecuador, but of all humanity." This letter further increased Noboa's international prestige. In 2027, the United Nations decided to appoint Noboa as Global Emergency Coordinator. This role involved providing coordination in natural disasters occurring worldwide. Noboa fulfilled his first duty during the tsunami in the Philippines, ensuring the safe evacuation of 50,000 people with his intervention there. This success led to him being called the world savior. Time magazine selected Noboa as the most influential leader of the 21st century. The magazine appeared with the headline, "The Lifesaver," on its cover. This cover became the best-selling Time issue in history. The Global Emergency Academy, established by Noboa, trained 500 experts from 50 countries. These experts serve in emergency interventions worldwide and apply the Noboa method. Apple CEO Tim Cook met with Noboa and decided to develop a special mobile application for emergencies. This application, called Lifesaver, was designed to provide life-saving information in critical moments. Netflix shot a documentary series called The 47 Minutes about Noboa's life. This series was broadcast in 190 countries and increased emergency awareness. Pope Francis from the Vatican received Noboa in a special audience. The Pope said, "God has given you the ability to serve people," and prayed for him specially. The Norwegian royal family awarded Noboa the title Hero of Humanity. This title was a rare privilege given only to people who served the world greatly. 3 years later, the causes of the accident at Guayaquil Port that day were investigated in detail. Findings showed it was due to aging infrastructure and inadequate maintenance. Following Noboa's instructions, safety standards of all industrial facilities in the country were reviewed. In 2027, the Industrial Safety Law was enacted in Ecuador. This law brought strict inspection mechanisms to prevent similar accidents. Noboa said, "We must do everything we can to ensure such a crisis never happens again." Pilot Captain Martinez, who served in the operation that day, received the Hero of Ecuador medal. Martinez now serves as the country's emergency aviation instructor and passes on his experience to young pilots. The commander of the fire teams, Carlos Mendez, was also promoted and became SNGRE's chief instructor. The seminars, where he recounts his experiences from that day, are followed by all fire teams in Latin America. Dr. Patricia Morales received a special award from the World Meteorological Organization for her contributions to the field of meteorology. The rapid report she provided that day played a critical role in the operation's success. Citizens in Guayaquil still vividly remember that day. 67-year-old retired teacher Rosa Martinez says, "When we heard the president's voice that day, we understood we shouldn't panic. His calm tone calmed us down too." Local businessman Juan Carlos Vega recalls, "When I went to the upper floor of my house, I saw the planes dropping water on the gas cloud. At that moment, I realized how intelligent our president was." Sofia Guerrero, one of the children saved that day, who was 12 years old, is now 15 and aims to become a chemical engineer. "I want to save people with science, like President Noboa," she says. In Ecuador's universities, the event from that day has become the main topic of crisis leadership courses. Students analyze the decisions Noboa made and discuss how they would act in similar situations. Guayaquil Municipality placed emergency information panels at various points in the city. These panels explain the procedures applied that day and inform citizens about emergency preparedness. The cost of the operation that day was a total of $2.3 million. However, experts calculate that if this intervention hadn't been made, the economic loss could have reached $50 million. According to Ministry of Health reports, only 23 people applied to hospitals that day, and all of them were treated for mild respiratory discomfort. No one experienced serious health problems. This success story has now become part of Ecuador's international image. Foreign investors express confidence, citing the country's crisis management capacity as an example. 5 years later, members of the emergency team from that day still regularly meet. The team, which gathers for a special dinner every March 15th, shares memories from that day and continues to train new generation experts. Noboa visits Guayaquil every year, meeting with families saved that day. "The fact that these people are alive motivates me every day," he says. The children from that day have now become young adults. Some have graduated from university. Some have married and had children. Noboa takes great pleasure in watching this life cycle. Today, March 15th in Guayaquil is not only a national holiday, but is also celebrated worldwide as Emergency Awareness Day. On this day, Noboa's legacy continues to live on throughout the world. This story will continue to be passed on to future generations as the most beautiful example of how a leader can change history with courage, science, and love for humanity.